Your current mayor of London is failing to protect your mental health. He's also failing to invest in our younger generation, and he's failing to innovate and provide solutions for our citizens. Let's look at some of these numbers because it's very sad indeed. We are currently facing a spiraling out of control mental health crisis. According to the Office of National Statistics, depression has doubled. Almost 1 in 5 adults, currently 19.2%, are currently experiencing some form of depression right now. Now, to put that in perspective, that's up from 9.7% of adults, or around 1 in 10, that were feeling that in February before the pandemic. But it gets worse. We've seen a rise in eating disorders. And Beat, which is a charity for people with eating disorders in the UK, has seen a 73% surge in people accessing its services for help. And that means it's needed because this increased time that we spend with family, with a lack of gym facilities and an upset to our routine, can intensify our mental health issues. And leave me a comment right now if you feel that this lockdown has made your mental health worse. Sometimes we're locked up with family. Sometimes we're forced to work from home. Our children can't go to school, and that makes depression, that makes struggles with eating disorders even worse. So leave me a comment if you're struggling with this right now. But the problem is that for our younger generation, it gets even worse. And Beat has said that the crisis is hitting our youngest generation the hardest, meaning that there is a doubling of urgent referrals for children with eating disorders right now as we speak. So again, I want you to type in and give me a comment right now. Tell me, have you felt an increase in depression? Have you felt an increase in a struggle with your mental health? Again, almost 1 in 5 adults, or 19.2%, are currently experiencing some form of depression right now. We're all struggling with different ways of coping with it, and I want to know how you're feeling right now. Please answer the following questions for me. First of all, tell me, what borough do you live in? And tell me, what's the biggest challenge you're facing, and what's the question you want to ask me? Second of all, answer this question. Does lockdown damage your mental health? Is it causing depression, especially for our younger generation? Also, are these mental health issues going to hurt us more in the long term, and are you suffering? Do you think it was right for the police last Sunday to detain us, to fine us, and ban us from campaigning, and is it politically motivated? And finally, do you think that free and fair elections should take place on May 6th? And do we need new leadership, new ideas, and do we need to take London in a new direction? I want to go to your comments right now, and there's a lot of them coming through. First of all, there's a few from our website, and I really want to call these out. There's some excellent ones here. We've got Tracy and Barking and Dagenham that says this, quote, wow, this is really heavy. Tracy and Barking says this, quote, having had 2 sons stabbed, I lost my nephew, who was only 31 on New Year's Eve, stabbed to death. Wow, this is hard to read, Tracy. Knife crime needs intelligence addressing and knife detecting equipment for all police to carry. Better funding for police. Tracy goes on to say, do you intend to do this, as my nephew is in the chapel of rest now? This could have been avoided if police did better security checks on people and put orders on them to keep apart when police are called. Our family is devastated with this tragedy, unquote. And I just must say, Tracy, I have to say I'm so sorry that this happened for you. It's really even just hard actually to read this out. 2 sons stabbed and lost your nephew on New Year's Eve. I mean, this is very hard to hear, Tracy. And it shows how much you know it's important that we start to look more seriously about how we police our communities. And she's calling out for better ways to search for people if they're holding knives. She's searching out for better ways for us to police our communities. And I was speaking with a man named Dean Okai, and I spoke to him after I spoke at Homerton back in November and December, when we were allowed to go to community events. And Dean came up to me afterwards and he said, Brian, I spoke with senior members of the police, and he said even they have said we can't police our way out of knife crime. And I also said when I was on stage, I said this, and maybe this will mean something to you, Tracy. I said, when teenagers are stabbing teenagers, it's not their fault, it's our fault. Because we've failed as members of our community. We failed to get the right policing. And the problem is very complex, but it means a few things. First of all, we need more police on the ground. Second of all, we need to enable police to make sure that knives are not part of our community, which means we need zero tolerance policy for anyone carrying a knife. But we also need more options for our children in our communities, which means we have to reopen our community centers. Under the current mayor, he has closed down community centers. He shut them down. He shut down their budgets. We've got to find new ways of investing in our community centers, which is why I know that corporate investment in our community centers will mean our younger children have other options. It also means that we can use those funds to give them other things that they can do. We can also better fund our police, which means they can have more police officers on the street and they can better search for these things. Again, this is at nightmare proportions. The current mayor of London just had his 100th teenager murdered on his watch. Every year the current mayor has been in office, we've seen night crime rise and rise and rise and rise. And Tracy is one of the many citizens that is suffering from this, and it is unacceptable. And I promise that we will find solutions, and that means more police on the ground. That means empowering the police with more technology and more ways to police the community. That means empowering our communities with more and better funded community centers. And Tracy, it means making sure this no longer happens. London, you know, it really leads the world when it comes to these horrendous knife crime statistics, and we've got to take ownership of it, and we need a change of leadership, or we're going to have 3 more years of the current mayor and his shocking statistics. So Tracy, I probably speak for all of us. We're sending out all of our energy and all of our condolences to you, and all I can say is, as your next mayor of London, I'm going to solve these problems, and I'm going to stop giving you excuses, and I'm going to stop blaming other people, which is all our current mayor does. So thank you for your comments, and we're sending out your support as well.